everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio with another artist trading card video with my new stencil from Stencil Products. This one is called Desert Sights and it's an ATC mix-up, which means it has 9 little ATC size stencils on one 9x12. I cut them with my guillotine cutter to make them into individual stencils. So from now on all the videos when I use them, you'll be seeing them in that form. I also used some Arteza acrylic paper, which is a heavy stock with a printed canvas texture on it. Cut that into 15 ATCs, and that's what I'm using today. Today we're going to be using water-soluble media, watercolor, with these 3 stencil designs. I got out some heavy gesso. This happens to be the Art Basics brand heavy gesso, and I am using that as kind of a resist. I'm putting it through the stencil, and it's like a paste because it's thick and heavy, but it's not plasticky like the metallic pastes are, or any of those. So it's just heavy gesso, and I'm letting that dry overnight, cleaning up everything so that it doesn't dry on my tools. And then once it's dry, for my first card, I'm going to use some of these powdered watercolor pigments. They're powdered pigments that react to water. And I have 2 different brands here. I've got Brusho and I've got Ken Oliver Color Burst. Then I also have some Pixie powder, which I got in those little, somebody sent it to me from England. I don't actually own any of it. I think it might be made by maybe Spectre. I'm not sure. I don't have the packages. I just have the little powder in the little Ziplocs that somebody sent me. It's actually shiny. It's got mica in it, but it's also water-soluble pigment, and I do use a little bit of the gold at the end of this. So I'm using a couple of the greens, the phthalo green and I think it's called verdigris maybe, from the Ken Oliver, and then I also used the sepia from the Ken Oliver. I used the leaf green and the other green, whatever it is, from the color burst, the Brushos. And I'm just sprinkling them on and then squirting with a small squirt bottle to get them to start moving and running, making a big sloppy mess. There's a lot of heat tool drying involved in this process. The underpaper was actually really pretty. I had to move it because I knew that I would reactivate it if I got it wet. So then once I'm done with that, I take a little nail buffer, a little tiny sanding block that they use for acrylic nails. I just scratched the surface of the gesso to get the staining, as much as the staining off, so that I end up with a white, a lighter, it's not completely white. These powdered pigments, they're the type of thing that stains your fingers. They're like stain, they're intense. So they did stain the gesso, but I just took the top layer off with a little sanding block, and it stood out from the background a lot more. Then I thought I still wanted even more definition, so I'm using my color brush, water-soluble brush pen in sepia from Pentel. I've been using these a lot lately, and they're water-soluble. I wish they were permanent, but they're not. They are a watercolor product, but I just love the brush tip on there. I can get something really, really fine all the way to really fat, and I don't have to switch out my brushes. So I dig it. This is a barrel cactus, and these things are everywhere. Our big cactuses that are called saguaros even start out looking kind of like this. They start out with these little round things on the ground, and then it takes them 100 years to grow an arm. They get really big, 12, 15 feet tall. But this one is just a regular barrel cactus. They get a little bit fatter, and they usually have the one I was drawing that's in my backyard is a golden barrel cactus, I think, and the spikes on it are actually kind of a yellow color, which is why it's golden, I guess. But that's what inspired this particular stencil design. There are 9 different little stencils inspired by all different types of things that you might see in the desert around where I live. So then I put a sticker on there. I put some brown ink, stays on brown ink around the edges. Put my sticker on there with a little brown ink around that. It says grow. And that was kind of a commentary on how long it takes cactuses to grow. They don't grow quickly. They really don't. So for this next one, again, I put the heavy gesso from Art Basics through the design. And this one is kind of, it wasn't inspired specifically by something. It was more like kind of a generalized desert scene with some interesting rock formations and shapes, and then some cactus shapes and sunshine, and just like the whole thing that really represents desert to me. And so that's kind of what it kind of design it is, not something more specific than that. I got out my little set. I bought this from an Etsy shop called Watercolor Hoarder, and it is the set of Tundra and the set of Forest granulating watercolors from Schminke. And I love granulating watercolors. They're the ones that just kind of like, they kind of separate out and make interesting patterns on the paper. Of course, this isn't watercolor paper. I don't really know what's going to happen exactly, but I like these two sets, the two color collections from Schminke, these two, because they're definitely desert colors. So I thought that it would be a good thing to watercolor this one with these colors. So I'm using my number 8 silver brush, and I am putting the colors. I'm getting the colors from the half pans and then kind of doing them in the lid to see which ones they are. These colors actually are a little bit confusing. They don't necessarily, what they look like in the pan isn't necessarily what they turn out like. It's pretty interesting. Then I also got out some of these Daniel Smiths. I wanted to use the quinacridone gold and the green gold from Daniel Smith from my other little set. So I just kind of painted around all the different, I painted the colors in the areas where they should be on the scene kind of. And I needed that to be dry. It was pretty wet, so I took a little bit of shop towel, paper towel, and kind of slurped up a few of the spots because there was pools, of course, because I got it pretty wet. Then and the reason I got it pretty wet is because I wanted the watercolor to move down into the cracks and crevices. So again, I did the same thing with this one. I sanded the very tops and kind of removed some of the color and made the shape stand out more. Remember, this is heavy gesso, so you can sand it, and I use one of those little manicure sanding blocks to do that. And I put some of that brown around the edges. This stays on brown ink. And then I think I'm looking for a sticker right now. And yeah, I trimmed down the sticker, and then I put some of that ink around the edge of the sticker. Not stinker, sticker, before I put it on. It says focus on the good. And that's something, a lot of people say, oh, the desert's hot, it's dry, it's ugly, it's flat, it's brown. No, it's not. It's beautiful. It has shapes and colors and amazing things that you don't see anywhere else. And you should focus on the good and not, whine when it's too hot, when it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Right? So there's the second ATC. And yeah, I think it's really cute. I like how the watercolor went down into those crevices of the quote acrylic paper that's supposed to be for using with acrylics. It looks like fabric. So this next one, I used a silvery gray color paste from TCW through the stencil. This stencil was inspired by the river rocks in my landscaping. When it's wet out there and the rocks get wet, they get all different colors like pinks and purples and grays and greens and browns and rust colors. They become very interesting and vibrant. Of course, I didn't pick the rocks. They came with the landscaping that came with the house, but they're really cool. And then when it's very hot and bright midday, they get really interesting shadows. And so that's what this stencil design was inspired by. So I put the gray down, the silvery gray color down because they're rocks, right? They're rocks. It made sense to me. And then I decided to use another watercolor product just to show you that there's all kinds of watercolor. They all fall under the water soluble watercolor. It doesn't have to be in a pan or in a tube. It can be other products too. These are the Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons. And all I did was on my underpaper, I scratched out the crayon onto the underpaper. And then I picked it up with water and my number 8 silver brush and applied it to the paper. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? I used different colors of pinks and purples, some teal, some kind of terracotta, orangey color, some dull green, and just put them all around until I was happy with it. I think as I was coloring this, of course this is rocks, but as I was coloring it, I decided it also could be leopard print. So if you wanted to make a cute leopard card, for animal prints are back, people. They're back again. How many times have they come back? But a lot of the clothes that I've seen recently for the fall have been animal prints, and there's a lot of leopard print, which it's cool. It's kind of goldy tan in the background, and then kind of browny black spots. You could absolutely do this with this stencil. Maybe I'll do it just so that you guys can see it. If you think that would be a good idea for me to show it, go down below and leave a comment and say, yes, you'd like to see a leopard card, because I'll absolutely do it if you ask. I always do it when people ask. So then I put some gray, some watering can gray around the outside edge, and then I got out one of the stickers from my Tim Holtz sticker book. I cut it apart. It says, great things take time. And I was thinking about the concept of how long it takes one of those rocks to be all shiny and rounded and smooth and worn away by the water that formed it, just for it to be in my landscaping in my yard. I mean, I love my landscaping though. It's great. It takes a long time to form those rocks. So I put a charcoal gray pen, a very thin pen, lines around that. I stuck on one of the little stick-on sticker gems, which looks like a diamond because diamonds also take millions of years to form. I kind of dabbed off the top of the shiny paste because it had a little bit of watercolor on it. And then my final thing to do was to take this Wink of Stella, I think it's called, Wink of Stella is one of them. This is actually the Spectrum Noir one, but it's got really shiny iridescent mica suspended in a fluid in a brush form, and I put the sparkly sparkles on all the rocks. So you can kind of see it in the video there. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or a question, or tell me you want to make a leopard card. You can subscribe, turn on the notification bells, you can share this, and of course you can go to stencilgoldproducts.com or use the link below to buy my new ATC Mix-Up Desert Sites. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.